welcome back to the class, everyone. We've known Baylan is going to be coming to the game for quite some time now. We finally got his kit reveal as of last night. And there are two really important things that I want to talk about with that. The first being who are going to be the 4th and 5th members on his team, but also, what is the team even going to do? So this is not meant to be a very in-depth kit review where we go in and read every word and look at every single implication. But I do want to kind of have a bird's eye view of his kit, what he's doing, and what that could possibly mean on the larger scale. For example, characters that you might need to set aside, or for a specific team that you might really want to beat, and how Baylan can help you get there. Even if you're not going to get him the first time around, if it is the 2nd, the 3rd, or the 4th, and so on. So overall, his kit does look very strong. There were some interesting things right off the bat that I noticed. The first being that he actually doesn't have any exact interactions with Mastery. So while for himself, there will be boost for relics because of how he works with his new unique buff or unique status effect, Soldier of Fortune, you're not going to necessarily need to have the whole team at really high relics like a lot of the other teams like, because they have a specific boost to Mastery that is going to elevate that to the next step. Now, when it comes to the 4th and 5th members on his team, there's one thing that immediately jumped out, and I don't think I'm the only one who saw it. In fact, I think almost everyone saw it, but it was the very specific use of the word ransom in his kit. A lot of you will already notice why this is important, because this is a ability that is unique to only Hondo Ohnaka. And I love this for a lot of reasons. Number one, Hondo is just a really cool character, but I get a very similar vibe to when Leia Organa, the Galactic Legend, started having direct callouts for our good friend R2. Because while R2's kit has always been good, he was never really perfectly made for one exact team to leverage every single one of the things he does. Or at least when he was with CLS way back in the day, he was very quickly replaced. So you can see here in game, we have all the mercenaries ordered out. By the way, CG was very liberal with that tag, which makes something we're going to talk about later even more interesting in regards to who his 5th member of his team is going to be. But talking about Hondo right off the bat, again, the initial synergy with Ransom and it increasing your entire team's defense is fantastic, because also we all know defense can be very annoying. But there are some other things going on here as well. One of the really particular annoying things about Hondo's kit, or rather the rest of the game, is the fact that while he has the neutral tag up top, and there aren't any kits out there that specifically don't synergize with it, he was constantly running into interactions with dark side or light side users where they were only giving their bonuses to their specific sides. The one big example that I could think about is actually Vandor Chewbacca, who will very only specifically revive light side scoundrel allies. So while you can put Hondo on a dash team and he's actually quite good there, you're going to be missing out on some of the bonuses. One of the things that Baylan, Marak, and even Shin's kit do is, while they do have their specific alignment being dark side, they don't alienate light side or dark side in any way, at least on the allies side. So Hondo can go in and he doesn't really, not only does he get to do all the fun things that he wants to do and more bonuses with Ransom, but he's also not going to be negated in any way, because all the synergy that the mercenaries want to do, they really only care about the mercenary tag. They don't care about whether the fact that he's light side or dark side. So we don't have to worry about Hondo missing out on any of the really nice bonuses that come with that. In addition to that, they really like characters who attack out of turn, and Hondo does that pretty well right here. And then getting to lock your enemy up, it's always been kind of a useful technique. So Hondo just, in general, synergizes very well with the rest of the team, and I think is a pretty hard lock for the 4th member. Now, the 5th member is going to become even more interesting, because there doesn't seem to be a very obvious choice. When we go right back to that text that I had just pulled up, talking about Ransom, you'll also see that they have like health steal up here. That's pretty specifically referring to Shin and what she does, and it actually isn't for some other random character. So we don't really have anywhere specifically to look because of this, and we have to really start diving into a lot of the other kits from the other heroes. Now, the whole purpose of me ordering out the mercenaries here was to see really kind of which ones were free agents and which ones already had a home and which ones were kind of somewhere in between. And I don't love this, but our homeless characters here up top, I just don't think are going to be able to fit in with the rest of the gang very well. Maybe at best young Han Solo, just because Baylan will taunt fairly well, so maybe he'll have time for his damage to ramp, but I really don't think that'll ultimately go anywhere just because of how old this kit and how prepared based it was, and the rest of the team really isn't going to have synergy with that. One of the other ones that we also kind of looked into was Zalbar, but unfortunately, Baylan doesn't really offer Zalbar anything in the nature of being immune to like buff immunity or shock, because really once you land one of those on Zalbar, he's just out of commission for the entire match. Really, when we kept pouring more into this, the three and one other one that really stood out as the fifth member is going to be Vandor Chewbacca, L337, I guess we already talked about Hondo. And Vandor Chewbacca seems like a very weird choice, because when you look through his kit, he's really not doing anything for the mercenary squad as is. In fact, most of his synergy is all tied up with scoundrels. So you might be asking, if he's not here to revive Baylan or Shin or Merrick or really anyone, what in the world is he even doing on the team? And it all boils down to this unique right here, the Beast, where, and this is kind of nuts, you can kind of ignore the first part, doesn't matter. In addition, all enemies deal 25% less damage while Chewbacca is buffed. So as long as he has a buff on himself, a lot of the damage coming into Baylan is going to be even more mitigated, which again, this isn't meant to be a full kit review of Baylan, but if you actually go and look, holy crap, Baylan has so many different things, some of which are conditional, some of which are not, where he's just becoming tankier and tankier and tankier, whether it be with defense or health and recovery protection or crit immunity, again, in certain situations, he's going to be very hard to take down. And that adding this on top of it is going to be quite the pain in the butt. And then again, he actually does have the mercenary tag, so you are going to get some bonuses where Baylan is going to proc a taunt, one that cannot also be taken off once I believe he falls like under 50% health or something like that. So he does have some validity there, purely just based off of that, allowing the rest of the team to do what they need to do. Unfortunately, the rest of his kit isn't going to offer all that much, which kind of leads us to another option being L337. Now, L337, she is a mercenary, so that's great. But on top of that, she's always had some plug-and-play viability where she doesn't necessarily have to be on a scoundrel or a droid or a smuggler team to actually function. She does rely heavily on the prepared mechanic, but one of the nice things about her is she can both give it and take it, meaning that she doesn't really need a dash or a Kira there to be able to help it go around. So while she can do that, she's also going to do some other fun things like taunting. But one of the other things that I want to call out, and we kind of already mentioned this with Hondo, is the fact that she is going to get a 50% counter chance for the rest of the battle as soon as she uses her Mark 1 upgrade. The reason, all right, and it actually will increase up to 100% at the level 3. The reason why this is important is because if we go back into Baylan's kit here real quick, you will notice that he has a condition. Whenever a mercenary ally assists or attacks out of turn, aka counter, they gain 2 stacks of Soldier of Fortune. And then that's going to end up increasing L3's defense more and more, making her a pretty formidable tank. And we can maybe create a situation where you're jumping back and forth between Baylan and L3. The only times that, Baylan might not be taunting is when L3 is taunting. So there is some flexibility there. I'm not sure how necessary it will be. Baylan, while he does look like he will be taunting a lot, he can do it on his basic, he can do it on a special. He has cases through his either unique or leadership where he's kind of proccing it like we talked before when you go under 50% health. But at the same time, sometimes having to juggle between 2 taunts is really annoying. Now here is where things start to get a little bit spicier with the next character that we're going to suggest. One of the really understandable but annoying things that CG has done over the last couple of years is whenever they come out with a new team or faction, they have a tendency to lock that faction very specifically behind their own, so to speak. And what I mean is, when we go into Boss Nass's kit here in his leadership, he has, if all allies are Gungans at the start of the battle, summon a shield generator. If you've ever used or faced Gungans, you know that they are nothing without the shield generator. So basically what this means is if you don't have a full Gungan team, Boss Nass within himself is just pretty much useless. While the same exact thing is not entirely true to Reva, we do see remnants of this type of rule all over the place in Galaxy of Heroes. Again, she has places in her kit where it's at the start of the battle if all allies are Inquisitorious, meaning you can't just sub in a random Piet and try to get the same bang for your buck for the team or another random Empire or unaligned Force user character. What's interesting is Baylan doesn't do that. At least from what I saw, going through everything that he has here in his kit, there were never any if clauses where if all allies are mercenaries at the start of the battle or anything of the like. The reason why this is a big deal is because that 5th slot can then be utilized by a character that isn't a mercenary. And while they won't be getting all the bonuses that say the mercenaries do, they might be able to bring something to the table that is more worth it. And for those who've been playing the game for a very long time, you will know of one plug-and-play character that has a tendency to really like constantly reapplying taunt to tanks, and that is going to be Wat Tambor. So obviously does not have the mercenary tag, and he does have a few other homes, I think the main ones being both Trench and Sith Eternal. So you might not want to necessarily be sacrificing him for this, but I'm really interested to see what it does, because this just sounds awful to face for me. At the start of the turn, recover 30% protection and dispel own debuffs. Tanks taunt while they have protection. So if you can throw this on Baylan, while he will be taunting in a lot of his own ways and what he's based on, the fact that it will come back every single time is dispelled while he still has protection is kind of nuts. And then getting to throw, you know, the turn meter on one of the attackers, maybe Shin, and then the recovery med pack actually on Hondo sounds very annoying. Or maybe even on Marak, because Hondo will be behind that one buff that he has where they can't target him right away. So there is some real potential here for this to stir up some trouble with him being on the team, especially when we go back and look at every single thing that Balin's kit does when it taunts. It is pretty extensive. This is probably being one of the biggest right here. While taunting, Baylan has 50% defense, tenacity, and retribution until taunt expires. Well, if you can just make it constantly come back, then you're looking pretty good. And then on top of that, every single time that he is actually taunting or he taunts again, he's going to be handing out Soldier of Fortune. The reason why that could be really nice is when you run into these teams that have a ridiculous amount of dispels, say on basic, kind of like a Sokotano, and she can just go in and rip it off and rip it off and rip it off and rip it off. He's just going to keep handing or gaining this like candy to be able to do everything that he wants to do with Soldier of Fortune for the rest of the battle. So there's definitely some possible synergy there with our good friend Wat Tambor, especially because of the fact that Baylan is going to be such a good tank, and that might afford some help in that area. So that's as far as his overall team goes. I'm a little bit sad that we're kind of wanting to pull from already established teams rather than dip into kind of not even what the other ones that are established, but like the maybes or even these. But maybe it won't matter. Maybe it'll be kind of like Leia, where there's a core 4, or like Queen Amidala, where there's a core 3, and you just kind of tack on whichever one you want to change the win rate by 2 or 3%. But I'd be interested to start with these to see where we get at a bare minimum. Now, at the beginning of the video, we said that we wanted to talk about team compositions, and we also wanted to talk about what he is going to do. And to me, it seems a bit painfully obvious due to one specific line that is going on in his text. And while I'm sure he will come out to do many things, this one stuck out a lot because it's just broken. So this is on his Omicron. While on Grand Arenas at the start of the battle, Baylan taunts for 2 turns. That's fine, whatever. If there is a non-galactic legend Ahsoka enemy, which, by the way, I had to like talk through someone with what this meant. We kind of settled on the definition very similar to Maul, where Maul will get a specific bonus against any character that is Obi-Wan. So basically, if the current 3 Ahsokas are in the enemy team, then the rest of these bonus apply, being Commander Ahsoka Tano, OG Snips, as well as Fulcrum. Anyways, if one of those characters is one of your enemies, mercenary allies ignore protection, so you think JMK or Seer, you're just completely annihilating all that protection up, sitting on top of their health that you're wanting to get to. You are going to be immune to critical hits and healing immunity, which that's nuts. Being completely immune to critical hits, we have had other characters or other teams do this before, but it's usually locked behind some kind of mechanic that you can remove. If we think of Supreme Leader Kylo Ren, he is immune to critical hits while he has advantage. If you can remove the advantage and apply buff immunity to shock, you can actually crit him, or if you have a move that dispels, you can crit him pretty hard. This is just straight immunity. They just can't crit you. And they expose all enemies and inflict them with healing immunity for 1 turn, which can't be evaded or resisted at the start of their turn. So that within itself is just really nuts in general for the JMK Cat team. And I mean, your enemy can take Cat and OG Snips off the team, but at that point, I mean, you're just opening up to other counters, specifically General Skywalker, that'll just wipe the floor with JMK if you're still wanting to leave it on defense. There is a few other things here and there, like buff immunity being replaced or replacing Foresight. That's also kind of a big problem for JMK because he kind of likes his Foresight. And then just being generally immune to instant defeats, that also is kind of a slap in the face to JMK. So all that to say, the team that this, I believe, it's going to win against a lot of things, especially on defense, especially with Balin's Datacron, which we don't even know what that is. I'm sure it'll be fantastic against a lot of things. But what it's giving me is it's giving me the same exact vibes that Bo-Katan gave for Lord Vader. Like, where she was just a custom team built for him. She exploited all of his weaknesses, didn't really care about all of his strengths, and Baylan seems to be doing the exact same thing for our good friend JMK, where we're probably looking at a 90% counter regardless of what Jedha or Galactic Republic Datacrons have out there. Again, if I'm reading the room right, and he's going to be the same as Bo-Katan is to Lord Vader, Baylan will be to Jedi Master Kenobi, or at least I assume. So, if that's kind of the counter you want, as well as Baylan's also really cool, and you're working on whatever you are working on to get there, that's something to keep in mind, where I think that is going to be what his long-term home is going to be. It's just going to be a General Jedi Master Kenobi killing machine. Overall, very cool. I'm excited to see what it does when we do eventually get him, you know, a couple months down the line. But let me know what you guys think, and as always, stay awesome.